Mazumdar, and today I will discuss one of the most important topic of financial management, that is capital structure theories. Here we will cover the topics like net income approach, net operating income approach, traditional approach, and approach, both with taxes and without taxes. In maximum videos, you will find that the approach is with taxes. The propositions that are given are with taxes. So here we will cover the propositions that are without taxes. Okay, this video is useful for the students who are preparing for exams like UGC Net Management or Commerce, and those students who are pursuing courses like MBA, BBA, BCom, MCom. Okay, let's start with the video. So what is capital structure of the fund? The capital structure decision refers to the proportion amount of debt and equity and finding out whether there is an optimum capital structure for the shareholders of the fund. So here the keyword will be the optimum capital structure. Okay. So the question of capital structure deals with whether a firm must borrow, and if yes, to what extent, so as to increase the value of the firm. Okay. So mainly the capital structure is the debt equity ratio. Okay. How much debt, how much equity, and how to decide that, and whether that decision will be perfect or optimum. That is mainly the thing, working of capital structure. Okay. A firm that finances its assets by equity and debt is called a levered firm or geared firm. These are the most important terms, so try to remember them because we will use it in the future. So a firm that finances its asset by equity and debt is levered. On the other hand, the firm that uses no debt and finances its assets entirely by equity, so only equity, is unlevered firm. Okay, try to remember this. Okay, equity and debt, levered firm, and no debt and only equity is unlevered firm or ungeared firm. Okay, moving on. The net income approach. We know debt supplier get an interest on the amount of debt provided by them. That is obvious. They are providing an ample amount of money, so they should get an interest. Once the interest is paid, the remainder is available to shareholders. That is also obvious. So the net income approach assumes that the cost of debt as well as the cost of equity remains constant irrespective of the level of debt or capital structure. Okay, so I'm highlighting this, okay, so that you may notice that this is the important point. Here the cost of debt as well as the cost of equity remains constant, okay, irrespective of the level of debt in the capital structure. That means I don't care how much debt is in my capital structure, but the cost of debt as well as the cost of equity remains the constant. Okay, cost of debt, KD, is less than the cost of equity. Okay, suppliers of debt and equity are indifferent to the level of debt raised by the firm and demand uniform returns. We have covered this, that their cost of debt as well as cost of equity remains constant irrespective of the level of debt. That is, the suppliers of debt and equity are indifferent. They don't care how much debt is there. They just demand uniform returns. Okay. Also, there are no taxes. The total value of the firm is the sum total of the value of equity and the value of debt. Okay. Thus, the total value of the company is dependent upon its capital structure. So, according to net income approach, the value of company is dependent upon its capital structure, because the total value of the fund is the sum total of the value of equity and value of debt that comprises of capital structure. So it is dependent, right? Okay. Since cost of debt is lower than the cost of equity, we have covered this, that the cost of debt is lower than the cost of equity. Okay, the overall cost of capital will fall down with increase in debt structure, okay, and will increase the value of the firm. Okay, so overall cost of capital will fall down with the increase in debt structure and will increase the value of the firm. So optimal capital structure under net income approach is 100% debt. Debt is a cheaper source of finance and equity due to tax saving effect. There is a tax shield effect because you are paying this much interest, so there is a tax saving effect, and there is investors risk perception. Okay, the optimum capital structure occurs at the point of minimum weighted average cost of capital. The weighted average cost of capital is the total value of the firm. How much debt, how much capital, cost of debt. So the optimum capital structure occurs at the point of minimum WACC. These are the most important points. You should remember all of them, okay? Because the MCQs can come from anywhere. There, I will make a new video on the MCQs from this capital structure part. Okay. I hope you got up to this. These are the sum of the formulas in net income approach. Cost of debt is interest by market value of debt. Cost of equity is earning for equity shareholder by market value of equity. Weighted average cost of capital is earnings to all capital suppliers by market value of firm. Now the net operating income approach. Unlike the net income approach, this approach assumes that the overall cost of capital and the capitalization rate remains constant regardless of the level of debt. Okay, but in net income approach we read that the cost of capital would reduce with the increase in debt proportion, but here cost of capital remains constant regardless of the level of debt. Notice the differences. Okay, NOI approach assumes that the value of the firm remains constant because the overall capitalization rate is constant. The basic theory of NOI approach is that the net operating income of the assets is constant and it can't change simply because the sources of finance to acquire these assets have changed. So it doesn't matter how much debt or equity we have in my capital structure. It doesn't matter how I have acquired these assets. The only thing that matters is that the net operating income of the assets is constant. Okay. So since the debt equity doesn't matter, that is the capital structure doesn't matter. So the value of the firm is independent of the capital structure. Remember, it's independent. In net income approach, it was dependent. Okay. The debt and equity cannot add to the productivity of assets. That is obvious because debt and equity are not mattering anymore. Okay. So debt and equity cannot add to the productivity of assets. And debt is cheaper than equity. Debt is much cheaper than equity. Okay. Cost of debt is constant. I have written this point earlier. This is just a repetition. Under NOI approach, the cost of equity rises so as to compensate the reduced cost of debt, since debt is a cheaper source of finance. Okay. Increased debt. If there is an increase in debt, this changes the expectation of equity shareholders because their earnings are under now threat. Because if a bank or a company takes if a company takes a huge amount of debt, a loan, then the shareholders might think that the company could not repay their money, could not pay their money. Okay, so they seek higher returns. They now seek higher returns. They see that their earnings are under threat, so they seek higher returns. Okay. Under net operating income approach, no capital structure is optimal. Alternatively, all capital structures are optimal. There are few questions regarding this in UGC NET. So this point is important too. Okay. Remember, this point is most important. Cost of equity rises so as to compensate the reduced cost of capital, keeping the overall capitalization rate constant. Okay. Notice the differences. Okay, that is the most important part. Now the traditional approach. It recognizes the approach of both NI and NOI, that is the net income and the net operating income, not wholly but in parts. This approach recognizes the advantage of debt only up to a certain level, that up to a certain level debt is okay. Any increase in debt beyond a point causes cost of equity to rise because the shareholders might think that their earnings are under threat, so cost of equity will also rise. The shareholders will also demand more money. According to traditional approach, with increasing level of debt, overall cost of capital falls initially because cost of debt is less than cost of equity. It was our assumption before. Therefore, it rises because equity holders expect greater returns due to increasing perceived risk from the debt holders. I have written this in a very simple language. So just go through it and you will get it. Since the cost of capital falls initially and then starts rising, there exists a point where the cost of capital would be least. Okay, at its lowest point, the cost of capital would maximize. This lowest point is important because at this lowest point, cost of capital would maximize the value of the firm, and hence it is the optimal capital structure. At this point, marginal cost of equity will be equal to the marginal cost of debt. Remember these points, these are just one-liners and they are very useful in for NET exams or any competitive exams, or even in MCQ portion of the MBA, BBA exams, BCom, whatever. Now the MM approach. This is the most important approach. Okay, it supports the view of the NOI approach. It supports the view of the NOI approach. Behavioral explanation of the theory that the capital structure is immaterial. Okay, capital structure is immaterial to the value of firm. That is the irrelevance. Okay, proposition 1, without tax. Without tax, first proposition. The market value of the firm is independent of the capital structure. Market value is independent of capital structure. Remember the keywords. That is, the capital structure is irrelevant. The value of the levered firm is equal to the value of unlevered firm. Remember in our second slide, we gave the definition of the levered firm and the definition of unlevered firm. Okay. A firm financed entirely by equity is unlevered firm. Equity unlevered. Notice the keywords: equity unlevered, and the firm using some debt or equity, some debt, is levered firm. Okay. That is, the value of the firm remains the same as determined by its assets, no matter how they're acquired. No matter how they're acquired. Okay. Okay. Proposition 2, without tax. With increasing leverage, the cost of equity rises. Okay. With increasing leverage, cost of equity rises exactly to offset the advantage of the reduced cost of debt. This point we have read it earlier in the net operating income approach. Okay. To keep the value of the firm constant. Notice the keywords: increasing leverage, cost of equity rises. Why? Because to offset the advantage of reduced cost of debt. The value of the firm remains constant. That is, as debt increases, this is a good explanation. As debt increases, shareholders perceive higher risk. Obvious, thus cost of equity also rises because they also demand higher returns. Okay. These are very simple language, so please go through it numerous times and you will get it. Proposition 3. With no taxes, the cost of capital for the levered firm and unlevered firm would be same. With no taxes, the cost of capital for levered firm and unlevered firm would be same and will be equal to the capitalization rate, which is independent of the capital structure. Everything here is independent. That is why it is irrelevant. Irrelevance theory. In other words, the cutoff rate of the cost of capital for investment purposes in all cases will be the weighted average cost of capital and will be completely unaffected by the type of security. It doesn't matter debt or equity. Okay, that is independent. Same keywords everywhere. Okay, so the first part is market value is independent of the capital structure. Doesn't matter. And the second proposition is increasing leverage, cost of equity also rises to offset the advantage of cost of debt. And the third point, with cost of capital for levered firm and unlevered firm would be same and will be equal. Okay. Next slide. Arbitrage process. The MM hypothesis follows the arbitrage process. What is arbitrage process? It is the process that establishes the law of one price, which essentially means that any asset cannot have two different prices. It cannot have two different prices in different markets. Okay. An asset has to sell at the same price, otherwise investors will make a profit. An asset has to sell at the same price, otherwise what will happen? Investors will make a profit without risk by buying it in the cheaper market and selling it simultaneously in the expensive market. Okay, this is the arbitrage process. But the arbitrage process will make the prices converge in both markets because it establishes the law of one price. Law of one price. Remember this. Approach of irrelevance of capital structure based on the principle of arbitrage mechanism. Remember this. Okay. That is discrepancy in the valuation of the levered firm and unlevered firm. I have explained this in the previous point, so just go through it. Okay. Assumptions and limitations of theory of real relevance. Perfect capital markets, no transaction cost and no taxes. Cost of borrowing is same for investors as well as companies. That is, personal leverage is equal to corporate leverage. The cost of borrowing for investors is personal leverage and that of companies is corporate leverage. Free and instantaneous flow of information, symmetry of information. All investors are rational because they know, rational in the sense they know where to invest, how to invest and everything. They are all knowledgeable. Homogeneous expectation and risk, that is all, they are all identical. All earnings are distributed. Nothing is retained. All earnings are distributed. Okay. Now the MM's proposition with taxes. At first it was without tax. Now it is with tax. The value of the levered firm will be higher than the unlevered firm. Okay. Remember this. Levered firm's value will be higher than the value of unlevered firm. How much? By the amount of tax shield on the debt enjoyed by the levered firm. That is because levered firm takes debt, but unlevered firm is financed only by its equity. So there is the advantage of levered firm, and by how much? This and the amount of tax shield on the debt enjoyed. Mathematically, this is this value of levered firm equal to value of unlevered firm plus tax into debt. Proposition 2. With increasing debt, cost of equity would rise, though at a lesser rate than what it would in the absence of tax. Okay, I have explained this point here. See this, with no taxes, when there is no tax, the cost of equity with increasing leverage goes up and offsets the advantage of cheaper debt. We have read this in the net operating income approach. Within no taxes, cost of equity with increasing leverage goes up and offsets the advantage of cheaper debt, replacing expensive equity so as to keep the value of the firm constant. But when there is tax, the debt becomes more valuable because there is tax shield. Okay, there was no tax shield in no tax, obvious. So with taxes, debt becomes more valuable due to tax shield provided by interest paid on debt. This tax shield benefits the equity holders, and hence cost of equity would not rise as much had there been no taxes. Since there is tax shield, it is much more valuable. So the cost of equity would rise obviously, but not that much. Okay. Proposition 3. With increasing debt, the cost of capital too would rise, though at a lesser rate than what it would in the absence of tax. Same thing as previous one, but here it is the overall cost of capital. In presence of corporate tax, optimal capital structure is 100% debt. Okay, 100% debt. Thanks for watching. This is the first video on this channel. I will provide more videos from now on. Also, I will leave my email on the description box if you want to contact me. If you liked it, do leave a comment and like and subscribe if you wish to. Stay blessed and take care of your family. Thank you.